domestic violence. Charity representatives expressed gratitude, noting the funds will provide vital support for children, including education, shelter, and trauma services. Internationally, Meta, the parent company of Facebook and Instagram, has donated $1 million to an inauguration fund for President-elect Donald Trump. The tech giant's boss, Mark Zuckerberg, dined with Trump at his Mar-a-Lago resort in November, having sought to repair his and his firm's relationship with Trump following the election. Trump has previously been highly critical of Mr. Zuckerberg and Facebook, calling the platform anti-Trump in 2017. Meta is not believed to have made similar donations to President Joe Biden's inaugural fund in 2020 or to Trump's previous inaugural fund in 2016. The company confirmed its $1 million donation to the inaugural fund to several outlets on Wednesday. Inauguration funds are used to pay for events and activities when a new president takes office. Some consider them an attempt to curry favor with a new administration. Trump will be sworn in as the 47th U.S. president on January 20th. Well, that's news to the hour on WESN. I'm Naomi McNish. Thanks for watching.
Was the night before Christmas, and all through the house. Oh, wait, different story, but we'll still see a mouse.
Hello? Hi, Mickey. It's me. How's everything going for the party?
Almost done. This is gonna be my best Christmas party ever.
Mickey, you're not overdoing it again, are you?
No. I've cut way back this year. Less is more, I always say. Aw, Minnie, you're gonna love it. Well, I've got candy canes, eggless eggnog. Pluto, no.
Mickey, is everything all right over there? Mickey?
Just perfect.
Bring the magic of Christmas home with WESN's Joy of Christmas.
Buckle up, this might be a doozy. So, I want to start off with a follow-up to the ongoing saga of the Minister of Finance and his press conferences, public relations, potential faux pas, in my opinion, inability to give accurate information to clarify the situation. Ironically, in many ways, I could see similarities between his stance on the airport project and the figures he's giving and his opinions on the figures that the press has given out and the stance of the chief sec and the autonomy bill vote failure, obfuscating the issue as opposed to helping. Now, the Prime Minister has decided, because this is seemingly one of the few tactics that elected officials and politicians utilize, when one tries a message that that is to say, whichever party leadership is we, approve of and it fails, we will just utilize our revolving door of faces to attempt to put a different spin on it or to support the message or to do whatever else to try to push the message through, because heavens forbid we may have gotten it wrong with regards to our strategy that isn't working. We can't be wrong. Everybody else has to be wrong because we are always right. That generally is the behavior of politicians in Trinidad and Tobago. Tell me where I am wrong with that overgeneralization, yes, but I think it's fair to say it's pretty accurate across the board, unfortunately, because the Prime Minister, there's a couple of quotes in the report. Now, I am more than willing to be corrected because I didn't see the press conference personally. I'm just going by what's in the papers. I apologize, but you know, you can only take so much depressing content. Now, Prime Minister said, I understand exactly what the Minister of Finance was saying. I understand exactly what was happening, so I was not upset about it. Here's the key. You know information behind closed doors. We don't. You know exactly what his intentions were because you probably helped approve and come up with the message, or at the very least gave some sort of approval or acknowledgement of what he was doing. Maybe. I mean, if that's not the case, that'll be an interesting revelation. But let's assume that is the case. You know things we don't know, so of course it makes sense to you. You know what the objective is. The objective is not what we see. The objective is to placate us. It's to get us to agree with your side. The objective is not to give the truth, whatever the truth may be. And the fact is, the minister may have told a version of the truth in what he said, because he gave more than one version, so forgive me. So one of them could be true, or both of what he said could be true, just it depends on how you define certain things and how you account for certain things, where you want to put certain things in the ledger, blah, 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 blah. But the point is, you could understand that clearly because, and this is what people of my generation, those in the know, will call metagaming. You are using inside information to help make a determination, and it is making you biased with regards to what you think our interpretation should be. Now, let's go on. You think, this is another quote, you think you probably scored a point by saying the Minister of Finance was caught either lying or with misinformation. Well, buddy, when your stance one day doesn't equate to your stance the next day, one could argue that there's a high chance that one version of what you said was misinformation. And I just would like to ask the question here now, because again, I believe you are very well in the know of what was being said, Mr. Prime Minister. So I would like to ask, how much of a fool do you think the collective population and the media is? How naive are you trying to say you suspect us to be? To think that, oh, well, you know, the minister could come out there, say one set of things, right? And then say a second set of things on a different day, and then be challenged by the media. So why didn't just give us this clarity now? And then he wants to say, oh, well, not everything was in the minutes. From what I understand, all of the amendments were attached to the minutes that he himself gave us. So it leads me to the next point. Let's just say we'll go with your version of events, Prime Minister. If we take everything that you say at face value, then essentially what you're implying is that the Minister of Finance is incompetent. I'm not implying it. You are implying it. You are implying it with your words. Which your words are saying you think he was caught with either lying or misinformation? Well, then the fact of the matter is, if he was neither lying nor presented misinformation, that means that he opted into a press conference last week without full information of what he was talking about. Information of which he was involved in to present to you, said cabinet. And he's not aware? He's not aware? Right? Even if he wasn't aware of the notes or what was circulating in the public, although I would argue that if the public relations officer of your party was doing his job, and or the Minister of Communications, but more specifically, functionaries in the Ministry of Finance who should be monitoring these things on social media and in traditional media platforms, he should have been aware. There's more than enough people, you're throwing more than enough money around. Somebody was supposed to be doing that job, and if they're not, that's another version of incompetence. So, where's the failure lie in your communication? You want to blame the press? You want to blame the press for your mess up? And mess is not the word I want to say this morning. You want to blame the press? Really? Then he goes on to say, if you don't want to accept it, then don't accept it. That does not change the fact. What fact? We don't know what the facts are because there's like 6 versions of events with regards to the cost overruns. What's the fact? Part of your job is to clarify the situation so that you can give the public reasonable expectations and nip in the bud any unreasonable fears, concerns, anxieties, worries over things that aren't necessarily true or don't exist. Kudos for your tremendous accomplishment on that. By the way, let's go back to one of the things in this report that the Minister of Finance, what his position was, right? He said the cabinet note clearly indicates the project's timeline, the challenges faced, the amendments. Oh wait, the things that you claimed that the media didn't necessarily, they were reporting on, but you didn't know about because the reports that they were reporting on apparently were attachments to the cabinet notes. The phases of the project, the cost per fiscal year to date, the new requested funding to complete the project, and justifications for those requests. The justifications for those requests. Here's something that might be beyond many elected officials today. Just because you think you've made an honest mistake doesn't mean that you're in the clear when it comes to things that cost millions or tens of millions or hundreds of millions of dollars. Because if it was a private business or any reasonable situation, if you make honest mistakes, right, and if there are reasonable cost overruns that are significantly high as to increase the price of a project that you sold us on the price. So part of what the opposition's gotcha moment was hey, it's not actually that price now, is it? Why is it not that price? Now you're saying there are justifications. First of all, I don't think the justifications goes deep enough to put it completely in the clear, right? What are the claims that the Chinese company has to NIDCO that you just, have to start the down payment on and then sort it out after? Just because you have reasons doesn't make it 100% acceptable. Yes, they're technically justifiable, doesn't make it politically acceptable. But for the most part, we're kind of just left in the smoke and the fog with this nonsense. There's a part of me that really wonders, is it that you really, really think that we are just supposed to accept what you say at face value all the time? Now, I have said in the past, for the most part, I do accept what people say at face value, right, out there. Until and unless something could prove it to be dubious, potentially untrue, or otherwise inaccurate. Usually what happens is someone makes a claim, if no one contests it, well then the public discussion has nowhere else to go, unless I magically get evidence that falls into my lap, which does not happen very often, to counter the claim. They've put it out there. Usually politicians do a good job of not saying things that could be considered a direct lie. Amory Brown said, the constituency executive did not contact me. That didn't mean that nobody else contacted him. He just said something that could be proven to be true. So he didn't lie. He didn't lie. It was actually quite a well thought out parry to that situation. Didn't necessarily work. That's your risk when you try to do those things. Why do we need to believe you, given the fact that of all the ministers we already have on track record, the Privy Council did not take what the Minister of Finance said at face value, because they didn't even need the Auditor General's attorneys to speak on her behalf. They just listened to what the Minister of Finance's attorney said and basically said, I'm paraphrasing here, I am interpreting here. We don't believe you. You lose. What's I want to say? If the Privy Council has found enough, like this is a serious matter if it reaches the Privy Council. The Supreme Court of Trinidad and Tobago basically said the Minister of Finance's case was not reasonable. His words were not reasonable. So now we, the public, are supposed to still naively be like lemmings to walk off that cliff? Why? Why? If we don't want to accept it, that does not change the fact. The fact of what? That the Minister of Finance made a real cluster, you know what, of this issue? And I don't necessarily know what's worse. How he tried to handle it 3 times, or how you're now trying to handle it in a very defensive, very domineering, and dare I say, arrogant manner. Not in an educational, explanatory manner. Not in a patient manner, not showing leadership. What it's showing is CYA. That's what it's showing. Except the collective A in this instance is your entire cabinet. All right. Let's end this here. Let's get to the daily review. There's some other important stuff to get to today before time runs out. All right, 2 for 1, staying on the Prime Minister because he's also tried to defend, and I'm not entirely sure exactly what he's defending, but I kind of do know. The whole situation with signing those agreements with North America, he has taken apparently great umbrage at how the media has framed it, because he doesn't like the fact that the media said that U.S. troops could be stationed here in case of emergency with threats from Venezuela. Here's the thing. Here's the real scene. There's basically 3 reasons why the U.S. would deploy troops to Trinidad and Tobago. One is a natural disaster. If something bad enough happens, yes, it's conceivable they will deploy troops here. 2, something goes really wrong with crime or civil unrest, and we essentially turn into Haiti. Right? I don't think that's what you're anticipating. So 3, some outside threat to the nation. I don't think Barbados or Grenada is potentially going to threaten us anytime soon. So why do we need to even bother with any sort of security apparatus, and why do we need to sign it now with the United States government? Now, granted, I do think that the Prime Minister's intention is to give a little something to the Americans, right? Because he wants something, he has to give something. They want this, what could it harm? What he doesn't want is it to be classified as a security measure against Venezuela in the press, because then Venezuela will get all a how about it. Except the problem is, how is it unreasonable for the media to interpret that potential? They didn't say that TNT is signing this just for that. They said it can happen. And then they decided to put that headline as they wanted to put that headline. Yes, I understand that the headline may have over-sensationalized or put a telescope on an aspect of the potential of the agreement that you didn't want highlighted, but technically the headline didn't lie. And let me just say this, Mr. Prime Minister. If you don't want to accept it, then don't accept it. That does not change the fact, to borrow a quote from you yesterday. Why is it unreasonable to point out the possibility? That same report, I believe it was that report specifically with the headline you didn't like, highlighted the fact that the U.S. still needs permission from Trinidad and Tobago to come in here. So I'm sorry if your master plan was not, if the media is not quite cooperating with you. I don't know what your actual intentions are. What I stated was what I think. I do expect that you don't want to anger both sides, but the media is not an arm of the state. I mean, you have that. You have state media if you want to use it. Unfortunately, not everybody has to bend the knee. And forgive a reporter for pointing out the obvious, because quite frankly, at least as of 2024, there's only one, and it may be small, it may be insignificant, it may never come to pass, but there's only one potential external national security threat from another nation state to this country. One. Are we going to dig our heads in the sands and just pretend it doesn't exist? It's not my fault they were talking about utilizing force to take Essequibo. I don't know. Maybe when a bully issues threats, I am one that is willing to at least take it somewhat seriously to make sure we have insurance, just in case. Just in case. But hey, it goes to show where your priorities are. I need this deal to make us look good. Security concerns? We don't even worry about security concerns. It'll never happen, right? It'll never happen. Hitler will never invade Poland. Let's move on quick to the last story. This one, it's a shame I don't have more time to talk about it, but I do need to mention it, and it'll probably come up later on in the week. The UNC is seeking a coalition. From what we understand, it might actually already be finalized. Well, the coalition might have already started. The membership may not be finalized. Currently, right now, there are reports that the coalition potentially includes the Progressive Empowerment Party, the Movement of National Development, headed by a former Attorney General from the UNC, and the Congress of the People, as well as trade unions, the OWTU, the PSA, the Transport and Industrial Workers Union, the Trinidad and Tobago Postal Workers Union, and the Fire Service Association. It may not be limited to just those things. Then, it also potentially could include HOPE, who, from what I understand, they were not able to come to a decision on short notice to attend or to give an affirmative response to this, and as well as it also does not include certain parties like, most notably, the NTA, the Movement of Social Justice, and the Party for Michaela Pandey. Patriotic Front, there we go. I had a brain freeze just now. My apologies. Now, here's the thing. This seems to be quite a shift from one of their stances, because it seems as though, I was trying to go back, at one point they wanted alliances, then they didn't want alliances. Most famously, it was alleged or reported that Jerlene John was basically saying we could go it alone. Gary Griffin of the NTA was basically pointing out that Jerlene John had too much influence over Kamala, but Dr. Rudal Monilal, MP, opposition MP, he said, no, we're going on our own for this election, which is what the UNC said for the last general election, and lost. Now, the thing is, some of these parties, some of these allies have already had issues with the UNC in the past, but I guess all is forgiven. Meanwhile, the NTA, who actively lobbied for an alliance, it makes me wonder if all of the stuff that they said last year about small parties not pulling their weight, about going alone, was essentially to put a wall for Gary Griffith, and they reserved the right to actually invite everybody else. Gary Griffith, most notably, was trying to enter into an alliance, and I do believe that alliance was technically formed with the Congress of the People and HOPE. So that's one of the other questions that HOPE, who has not necessarily said yea or nay to this, needs to answer them to their membership and for themselves. It's interesting that Congress of the People has decided to index in on this. I mean, it's not like the UNC has not totally killed the Congress of the People yet, right? Given everything that happened in the partnership. And one of the interesting tidbits, the Movement for Social Justice, when they pulled out of the partnership, the OWTU agreed with that decision, and now here they are part of the alliance, because our goal is to kick out the PNM. Not good governance, not to come up with good policy, not to come together for the benefit of the country, just to kick out the PNM. Let's be real. So I don't know what to make of this. I just find it very hilarious that the opposition is going to say one thing and then a few months later going to say something else. And I am supposed to then believe what you say on the campaign trail. Oh, that's wonderful. That's, yeah. At a time when the government is, you know, flailing, potentially drowning, here you come with this. Now, I understand. It's not that they shouldn't make an alliance, it's that you need to think about the long-term implications of what you say. Because a lot of the things that they say comes back to bite them. Not me, them. Not what I say, what they say. They were the ones that said we don't need nobody at one point. They were the ones. And then they got a back and forth with Guy Griffith. And now all of a sudden, big coalition. Well then, I mean, what is it? You need nobody or you need everybody? What is it? And it does make me wonder if the UNC thought, hey, you know, maybe we could win on our own, so why share power? And then, perhaps, after some time and the dust has settled, and even with all of the bacchanal happening with the PNM and their leadership, the situation with the UNC is weak enough that they realize, yeah, maybe we can't go it alone. Now, I'll just say this. My wish would be that the COP, HOPE, NTA, and PEP all win a seat. All of them. One seat, just one. And the TPP gets the 2 Tobago seats. And well, there's a party there that I've heard of for the first time. I apologize. It was not on my radar, right? The Movement for National Development, that's fine. You can get a seat too. Because by having a seat, the key to all of our governmental power is in the House. The Senate is appointed. The House determines the Prime Minister, who essentially all the other dominoes fall from that point. Which is one of the reasons why I think we need constitutional reform. But right now, we're working under what we have. We can't just rush a constitutional reform for the next general election. That is going to be no bueno. So, if all of the small parties get one seat, then they have a seat at the rhetorical table. And then, depending on what happens, they could weigh in and not just be little brother to big brother of the UNC, or in this case, big sister. Because I think what happened to the MSJ during the partnership could potentially happen to all of them. It's very funny that they complain about small parties utilizing the UNC's resources but having nothing to offer. And yet one could argue, in terms of resources, will any of these parties offer? Maybe the unions, but the unions probably are not going to have candidates for MPs. It hasn't been said if these small parties will be putting up any MPs at all. So I get it. To get people like Timothy Hammersmith, Louis Lee Singh, Karen Shishera to speak on your platform in whatever capacity will be something of a coup. But is it that they're just there to help you market yourselves, to promote yourselves, but you're not actually promising them anything? Same thing to get the Congress of the People back, to get these unions back. They're just here to boost your popularity. But what are you offering them for that boost? Because obviously, you need them for something. You need either their credibility or their supporters or both. So I wonder who's using who now. But hey, what can I say? If the opposition was run properly, this election potentially should have been automatic. But it's not. And that's an indictment on nobody but themselves. I'm not saying the PNM is that strong. PNM is quite weak right now. And it's still not automatic? Come on. Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll switch gears on the conversation. Stay tuned. This is Talking About WSN. We'll be right back after this.
Transform your home with PCU Plus. From stylish furniture to the latest appliances, we have everything you need to create your perfect space. At PCU Plus, we offer fair prices and affordable financing options that are cheaper than hire purchase agreements. With convenient locations in San Fernando, Tobago, Arima, and our lifestyle showroom in Barataria, you're never far from the best deals. Visit PCU Plus today and discover why we're the top choice for quality furniture and appliances. PCU Plus. Quality you trust, prices you'll love. Visit one of our locations or find us online to start transforming your home today.
Simon's Musical Supplies Limited. We are the specialist in new and used musical instruments, carrying top brands like Yamaha, Pearl River pianos, vinyl and Sabian cymbals, Remo and Evans drumheads and Fender guitars, just to name a few. Also a wide assortment of music books, pan and accessories. At Simon's, we service what we sell. Trust the leader. Call us now at 625-6412 or visit us at 20 Board Street, Port of Spain.
Here's your chance to win a bicycle, a ride-on, or a hoverboard. Shop at dbesttoys.com and spend $300 or more to win big.
We've got Barbie,
Hot Wheels, Gel Blasters, Ride-ons,
Leapfrog,
Nerf, bicycles and tricycles.
Greco, and Wonder Baby.
Visit us in store at Forces flagship McLean, Movietown, Port of Spain,
Eastgate Smart and M6 Plaza Endeavour.
Merry Christmas, everyone!
Christmas 2
years ago. And we're back here on WSN's Talking Point, and I am joined by two very special guests from an organization that understands what the season is all about, but they don't limit it to the season. I am joined with the team leader of Is There Not a Cause, Avenel Hector Joseph, and project manager Brent Hector. Folks, good morning. Welcome to Talking Point.
Good morning. Thank you.
Thanks for the invitation.
So, a while ago, coming out of the pandemic, I did interview some NGOs which at around this time because, you know, I wanted people to kind of understand what some of their fellow countrymen were going through, or if they were going through the same thing, to understand they weren't alone and maybe find a source, an avenue to get some help that could, you know, well, help them out of the situation that they find themselves in. And recently, you know, there was a report in the news where some people were lamenting the fact that, hey, we would have to scale back Christmas this year to ensure we could afford to make it for the next paycheck at the end of January. And it made me think, well, boy, we believe we're out of COVID, but a lot of the economic constraints and difficulties never really left us and potentially got worse. So the first thing I want to ask either of you is, with regards to the needs of the people, what are you all seeing? What are citizens asking for? What help are they asking for over the last couple of months, maybe even the last year? How bad is it actually out there for some people?
Well, we've heard certain things that we've joked about, cold pot and don't eat ham every day and all kind of rubbish. Like, who eats ham every day as a working class, you know? People can barely get ham for Christmas. So when people make these kinds of comments, persons who are charged with the due care to manage the economy and to look after the citizenry, we know we are in a bad place because clearly they are out of touch. It's really bad out there. And it's not that we are prophets of doom or gloom, but we are realists. Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago, and anyone listening on the World Wide Web. We have been at ground zero. What we saw during the pandemic was telling. It showed that within 1 month of a lockdown, people who were going paycheck to paycheck, not even making it to the end of the month, what could happen? That we are all, a lot of us, at a tipping point, one paycheck away from being unhoused, of what we have in Trinidad that we've laughed and traditionally call it Trust Week, that last week of the month where you don't have food. There's no longer Trust Week for a lot of people. What happened? If you do your maths and you're working for $21 a day, that the politicians who've just gotten the 50% increase think they're doing such a great job to raise a minimum salary to $21. And please don't tell me that inflation is going to happen when you raise the minimum salary, because apparently it's not going to happen when you do the other people own. But we're not getting there as yet. So when you're looking for $21 an hour, even say $25 an hour, as a single mom with about 3 children, 2 children, or it might be one person working in a household, the basic rent for a little rattle starts about $2,500, $2,000, because the rent assessment board, we're not sure what happened with that after so many years. So many things that are wrong in this place that needs to be addressed. So now you are taking home this salary after you've paid your, let's just say you're living in Digo Martin, right? And you can't land the bus service. So, and you're living off route. From Port of Spain, it's $14 to get home. $14 to get back home. That's $28. So you're working for more than 1 hour just to pay transport. When you pay rent, you have to pay transport, at least to get to the junction or whatever. Tell me how much money you have for food. We're not talking electricity, we're talking luxury about, snide remarks about don't eat ham often and all of that stuff. We're just talking about rice and beans and maybe a kind of corned beef. Tell me when you do the math. I failed maths twice. You tell me, sir, when you do the maths, how people living in this place. And does anyone in our offices sit on any given day while they're lying in a fancy restaurant, chowing down and saying, well, really, how people making out in this country, boy? And their supporters on either side who are in denial that we are experiencing dire, hard times. If you go to the streets, you will notice more and more you're seeing more people being added to the unhoused population. We also provide housing, emergency housing, and our spaces are never empty. We're always getting called. There's a mother in the promenade somewhere with children. There's a family in a car somewhere. I know how our politicians sleep at night but it's hard. And that's the reality that we face, and any NGO that's not being biased, that's really with a hands-on pulse, kind of tests to what I'm saying.
Well, I mean, with regards to one of your questions, to do the math, I don't have to do the math. I know someone personally who his family, his household didn't have meat for a while. So I think even corned beef, 1 can of corned beef would have been a luxury. It was limited to, pea protein, if any at all. And I find it interesting that you said on both sides of the aisles there is denial, because I am suspecting that as well. And not that I don't think you're saying it rhetorically. I actually do think it is literal with what you're saying. There are politicians that really don't know, don't understand, and dare I say, this is where we have to ask the question, is it that they don't want to understand? Mr. Joseph, let me direct this question to you.
No, Mr.
Sorry, Mr. Hector. Oh gosh, Mr. Hector. Let me direct this question to you as project manager. Yeah. What are some of the projects that you all have ongoing now, or particularly for the Christmas season, both so that people can know what is potentially there, but I would assume that a lot of it is oversubscribed. There are a lot of people asking for help. Yeah. But then also so people could know where they could potentially contribute to.
Well, thanks again. Good morning to the listeners. Well, what we have seen is we always try to give hampers throughout the year. But Christmas time, we try to give more hampers. You know, Trinidad's saying, at least let somebody have a nice Christmas, right? We all want to have a nice Christmas. And so it's not like they didn't have the need, but to add what Avner said, I think a lot of us are in denial of what has happened in the last 4 years, right? We came out of COVID, then gas subsidy was removed. There are people still in denial that has not caused a ripple effect. Transportation costs went up, cost of production costs went up, and that skyrocketed. I mean, it's like people forgetting or don't quite understand the add to the what you call the quote unquote working for. So that everything went up as gas subsidy was slightly removed, and gas prices went up coming out of COVID. We aim to give as much hampers as possible, Christmas hampers. Now, this is separate and apart of what we normally do throughout the year, right? So, for instance, if that could be doing a road, we'll be going on the road, I think Christmas morning, as usual, delivering supplies, Christmas supplies. Coming up to Christmas, we are seeking to get as much donation as possible from our partners so that we can get us, if it's 300, 400 hampers. I know times are hard, but Trinidad and Tobago has always been very generous, the population, and being their brother's keeper. We need it. Abby said, it's not, you would be amazed to the type of persons, and COVID started that you would think need help. You would look at persons and say, but this person is going to work every day, but quote unquote, to use the term working poor, right? And again, prices, transportation costs, public transportation costs have gone up exponentially in the last 3 years. So if 5 people have to travel from a house, or 4 people, and have to take 3 transportation to reach the work or to reach the school, you can understand how that is spent, of course, and that trickles to the food prices. We are doing that, and we're hoping that it would be lovely, honestly, if we could give out 3-4 hampers every month. We are stretching maybe 300, maybe 500. Again, we are doing that.
300-400.
Yeah, 300. We aim for 5 to be big. We're gonna go for we're doing something. Is it this Saturday in the square? Sunday we're doing something in the square where we're gonna give out food supplies and hampers and spread some joy and spread some love. That's one of the activities we'll be doing. As I said, we rely purely on support from donors, individuals, and corporation. So if you're an individual out there, it doesn't take much. I mean, 150, 200 can go so much, right? When they choose to buy 200 in groceries and drop it off, they choose to give us the cash so we can buy groceries. All of that is always appreciated. If you get a Christmas bonus, be a brother's keeper. Giving somebody, putting together a hamper for a family, $400 or $500, 2 people can put that together easily, right? So it's one thing to look and say, what can I do, what's happening, but it's very doable. A little can help along. We at least let people now have a nice Christmas. Apart from that, we are launching our city outreach. We're going to have that up and running. We officially launched it, but have it up and running. City outreach is located in Jackson Place, behind Mango Rose in East Port of Spain. So that outreach again is geared toward those who are marginalized, who have been on the side, so that it would offer a place that they can get a proper bath, toilet facilities, get fresh clothes, get counseling like career counseling and life counseling, etc. We want to be doing meals at least 3 times a week for the people in that area. So you're gonna come in this situation. It's a Keisha T. Edwards Outreach Center, or City Outreach for short. And so that is the handle, not just the Christmas issue, but that is to tackle a specific niche market, niche sector would need in East Port of Spain area. For those persons who may be through drugs, through life, through hardship, they are on the wayward side and we don't want you out there, come get fresh clothes. We'd give some meals. We'd have career counseling if you want. They come on to sign up for grants or for jobs. There'll be a couple of computers there with persons help you fill out all of these government forms, as I said, whether to get the grant access. So these are the things that there are much more, but these are the things that we targeted specifically for Christmas. We don't expect, we could hope, but we don't expect things to get any better come January.
Right.
But now, we'll be aiming for that for now, yeah.
Mrs. Secretary Joseph, I want to ask, has there been an increase in difficulty of getting donations, given the economic climate is to some extent hitting everybody, and maybe some people who may have given before, maybe they can't give as much as they used to, or they can't give at all? How has it been difficult, or potentially has the country rallied behind causes like yours even more so now than ever?
Okay, I want to say, as Brent alluded to many times, in fairness to our population in Trinidad and Tobago, it's a paradox. Somebody might say, oh, well, they're saying things hard, but yet still asking people to give. Brent said that we are very generous people, and that's like a paradox. There's a lot of suffering in Trinidad, but there are a lot of people who, even in their own suffering, give from their lack. And it's because of those people we are then able to help other persons. And so we want to thank Trinidad and Tobago people who, when they get their pension, they give $100 every month. Somebody might give $500 a month. Somebody, they might get a gratuity. They remember the poor. They remember their fellow citizens. They hear us say something. Something connect, something link, something touch, something deep in their heart. And then we don't have a whole lot of corporate citizen sponsorship, but we want to thank people like Carib, we want to thank Digicel and Digicel Foundation. They've really been helpful. Marriott Hotel, simple things like a project we've been trying to get on. We want to thank Marriott. When there's extra food, they call us. We go, we collect the food, and we maybe pass it out so that families can have dinner. They can have a meal. As Brent said, it's a big problem. But if each of us did a little bit, we really will get the job done. And, we are excited about the City Outreach Center, the Keisha Teleka Edwards Outreach Center. We want to thank the LDS, the Digicel Foundation, and we want to thank the Pentecostal Cathedral for helping us there, and individual citizens who would have made contribution. We've got a long way to go. And if anybody from the mayor's office is listening, I've been begging the mayor's office for the last week, begging to allow us to, with the use of the Woodford Square for about days, to do something called the Christmas Kindness Village. We've got the lights, we get the food, we clean up the square. We will do everything. It's not going to cost the state anything besides approval and some police protection. Or we engage a private security. Because, life is hard for a lot of people. And when you're living a good life, and you can go to a party at a hotel, and your fellow business people and politicians can invite you to a party to enjoy the season, you're not thinking that for that single mom who barely making it, just to go to a park and sit down, watch a live show, get some popcorn, get some snow cone, go to the thrift section and shop for free, get some love, get some cheer. That's something to look forward to. And we want to encourage kindness throughout, not just the world, but we are within the context of Trinidad and Tobago. We want to encourage, and so we continue to reach out to the authorities, and we hope that one day we will be able to partner in a greater way with whoever the particular regime is to really impact, because the problem is requires a tri-party or tri-sector approach. The government, private sector, and civil society.
Well, I mean, one of the big questions, I guess, that people might not be aware of, and I hope that this might not be, the implication of it might not be true, but I want to ask, does it seem like the number of effective working poor, the households with genuine needs, the number is growing as compared to, say, before COVID, and then it may be increased with COVID and potentially increased further as cost of living went up, and we effectively have no inflation because people don't have the money to drive inflation. one of the many paradoxes, as I don't know if you're aware about, that's one of the theories as to why we don't have inflation. We just literally can't drive it. We don't have the liquidity for it. Has the effective working poor potentially increased in number and the amount of need out there increased over the last couple of years?
Definitely, definitely. I don't think that one has to be an economist. One has to be realistic. One has to be out of denial. One has to remove their head from up in their political places and just walk through our malls. We're not talking about the migrants. Just walk through malls, drive on the highway, see the amount of people, the amount of stories that appear on Facebook, the amount of people that are coming up on different Facebook posts. I know we wanted this person to say, boy, people just want to beg, and people, we come with all kinds of things, but to face the problem in our society, the amount of people. And I remember, I never thought I would live to see this in Trinidad and Tobago. But I remember some years ago in Haiti, where we do a tremendous amount of work, somebody said to me that they go to work for dignity. They want something, they get up in the morning and they go to work, but what they're working for really doesn't make any sense.
Right.
And I can tell you, we can tell you how many people we've saved from eviction, how many people that have been evicted the last couple of weeks. Repressive landlords that evict people, seize their stuff. We try to get the police involved. No luck or no success. Taking people's stuff for more than what they owe. And these people now have to start over. One of them ended up having a seizure. It is bad out there. And if anyone that is charged with the response, I say, I can't blame the government. We're not about blaming. We're saying that there are certain persons, whatever you want to call them, that are directed to see about these things and to address these situations. And we need to see this thing as a crisis. This is a pandemic of suffering and hunger. And how can we get civil society, the government, we would have suggested to previous incarnations, why not engage private sector and say to them, listen, if you give X amount of money, you will get a tax break or a tax level. Just like in America, if an organization is 501c3, every donation given to that organization is automatically tax deductible, right? We suggested that when things are almost expired, instead of it being dumped, give it to registered charitable organizations. Hold us accountable to report on how we're giving it, what we're doing it. Let us do something. How can, in God's good earth, do these people live with themselves, knowing that a sizable percentage of our population is actually, they're hungry. People might say starving might be too much of a strong word. But when we get to our family, and the mother said, my children haven't had anything but sugar water for the last 3 days. And it's not a far-fetched thing. We are in a crisis. I'm not sure what Mr. Hector would like to add here.
Yeah, I would want to add that the bottom line is we need to find a way to bring down prices. If someone don't want to call it inflation, what do you call it when your expenses go up by 50%?
Yeah.
As I said, what do you call it if you, because remember I said, the biggest impact is when transportation prices went up, right? So that, as I said, a family who has, everything is connected. Because the person who has to get 5 people out to school or 3 persons out to school and themselves, and have to take 2 or 3 different transport to each people, right? And that has gone up.
Mr. Actor?
Significantly over the time. Raising the minimum wage, we need to find a way to attack the major cost, which is high fuel costs. Bring that back down. What Abner was suggesting as well is that there are people who would always need, but we are looking at the people who are working and thinking, but for some reason, that they are teetering on the brinks of fall off, right? Because in the last 3 years, coming out of COVID, things have been really, really, really a strain, and there are persons that are living on, not that paycheck to paycheck, they are actually living on advances, right? They are running, persons are running a deficit month to month, right? Now, so it's one thing it's kind of hard for people to imagine because they could suck in the cost, but don't call it inflation. Let's don't use that big word. Let's call it when your $500 or your $1,000 in groceries 2 years ago is not the same as you get now.
Yeah.
Right?
Well,
right? Let's call it that. Let's call it the cost of that your pay could have done X certain amount 2 or 3 years ago compared to what you're doing now. Don't call it inflation. Whatever you call it, it's the reality.
Call it that your basket, your trolley, what is a $1,000 and your trolley, you can now put it in a small basket.
Well,
right, yeah. You, whatever the term is, Jason, whatever you want to call it, and you have to talk to some of these small business people as well, right? People think they own a business, but the small, the micro, small, even the medium businesses are feeling it hard because they have to increase their prices. And a lot of people should kind of say, how come prices get so expensive in Massio, in West Beach, or True Value? But it's not as simple as that. It costs all along has gone up, and employers have to balance, increase money for supplies, then they have to pay more wages because the employees' money that they're getting can't get them through. So it's very much right now about $60 to $100 a hair customer, right?
Yeah.
So if you have 3 sons, Jason, right? If you have 3 sons, right, you could find yourself every 2 weeks spending about $200 just on haircuts, right? Right. So those are the things I think people have to look at as I don't call it inflation.
Well,
you call it whatever you want.
From
right?
what I understand, the government is trying to say that we locally don't have very high inflation. It's less than 1%. The problem is, and this is experienced in the United Kingdom as well, it's not that there's no inflation. The prices already went up. The prices are already up. We don't need them to go up any further for it to be bad.
Yeah.
And then also, the price of food could go up when America has inflation, which I think their inflation is at 3%, and we import everything from them. So we're going to experience that on us, regardless of what is going on locally with whatever we produce locally, which how much is it really? Now,
let's call it cost of living. Let's say the cost of living.
Exactly.
Cost of living going up. Whatever the costs are, we can argue about the cost of living. Anyone can attest to that. In the last 4 years, has skyrocketed.
What is interesting is that it seems as though some people locally, like politicians, don't seem to understand. Meanwhile, there's similar news of this happening abroad. It's not like it's only happening to us. It's not like this is in isolation. And just that doesn't justify a lack of action with whatever else is going on abroad. Our own citizens have their own needs. But speaking about...
So Jason, that statement that you made there
is
very telling. Because what loyalists say in response to what is going on, well, it's happening all over the world. I didn't employ the politicians all over the world to govern me.
Yes.
What are we going to do in the context of what is happening globally? What are we going to do to mitigate the impact of our citizens? What are we, what not just grants, but what else can we do? Let's sit down and have a conversation. Or that's not important. We're just going to say, oh, it happened all over the world.
Let's bring down the cost of living. We have to bring down the cost. We have to find a way. Just to add this, right? I'm looking at the presidential debate, and one of the questions they ask, and we probably need to ask the question of these politicians, what are you going to do about cost of living, right? High food prices, high cost of increasing cost of services. And the president-elect pointed, he said something that's clear. He said, first thing they're going to have to do is reduce fluid prices, right? And he made the claim that is gas and fluid is what needed to create food stuff, run the factories, transport the goods, right? Transport the people to the plant to create the goods, transport the goods from the plant to the warehouse, from the warehouse to the shop or to the supermarket, right? So that he pointed out that the high cost of fluid is one of the major things. I think so. These are the questions we should really put to the politician in an election season. What are you going to do? Let's say you determine inflation because you could find all kind of different ways. What are you going to do to reduce the cost of living? Right? What is your direct plan? And these are the questions I think the media needs to put. Well, I saw he put it to the Minister of Finance and the Prime Minister, and we shouldn't rest at that answer, right? That should not be rest. We should, the people in both parties who are being affected, it's time to put yourself and the country first, right?
I hate to say this.
In the country first. Yeah.
I hate to say this, but part of me thinks that we also need to ask the population to take this more seriously when they speak to the politicians and make them mad. Because I do believe some of the neglect that we see, it's not because the politicians want to. It's that their priorities on other things because the vote in public tells them this with how they vote. We're not voting for you to sort out these actual problems. We're voting for you to give us freeness that makes us think that our problems are being solved. And in the long run, all of a sudden when we can't afford the fuel subsidy, it has to cut. And then the fuel prices go up. But now, what does that do? as you rightfully pointed out, this is very basic governance. Cost of fuel means cost of living goes up everywhere because transportation isn't just how you get to point A to point B, but how everything gets to you.
Function. Yep.
Now, with that said, I do want to switch gears just slightly because there's also potentially another cause that you'll have. There's a fundraising drive you'll are putting on to try to get your own administrative billing. I don't know if you are willing to share some details on that with us.
Of course, we're willing to. But before we go to that, I also really want to make the plea, as Brentford has said, we do for the last 21 years. This is our 22nd, going into 23rd year. For the last 21 years, 2003 to the present, even during COVID, we would have also gone intermittently during the COVID, not just at Christmas. We've been working in Sobo, Palo Seco. We gave 125 hampers, including 100 hams and toys for 100 children. We are nowhere. Every time we try to put aside stuff to say, okay, this is going to be for Christmas, people have immediate needs. It's not experience saying, like, we'll put aside and keep that for Christmas. So we are, today is the 13th of December, and we literally have nothing as yet for Palo Seco. But we want you to dig deep toys, and we want to thank Better Value, we want to thank Excellent Stores and Retail Warehouse. As I said, we're also waiting for the mayor's office, and I do hope they will answer today. Mr. Mayor is listening. I just want this square. So we need that help, and Brent alluded that we go out on Christmas Day, and some of the people that we visit on Christmas Day, when we get to their house, they come like Miss Hubbard on beer. But we have been looking for a place to call our own. We call it Project Home Base. Project Home Base. And the project is $3,500. What we asking is 3,000 people to give just $500, or 500 people to give $3,000. We've seen a building, we've put in a bid, and we really hope we can get that building. It will be a warehouse, it will be an operations base, it will be a training center, because we really need a hub. Right now, we rent a space, and that's the only space that we rent at the moment. Where we do a lot of stuff. The schools for the migrants and all our other properties, they have been paid for, thank God, through sponsorship of regular grassroots people. Those are our emergency housing. But Project Home Base, if we can get even 100 people between now and Christmas, even 100 people between now and Christmas just giving that 3,000, we're going to really be happy. It's going to give us a great push. Because as soon as the lawyers call and say the documents are ready, we really want that. And, having an operations base is really, really important. Brent could speak about some of the challenges we face during a response, because we would have just come out of Beryl response without a proper operations base. We do the best that we can, we deliver. But if we have a base that we can call our own, where we can drive our trucks and load the containers, it's going to be a world of difference. Brent?
Ms. Hector? If you could add to that?
Sure. Because that could involve both an emergency response, as Avian mentioned, and ongoing humanitarian relief, social work, right? Okay, it's large, very large, and as such, space and transportation are always needed. So far, we have one, for instance, where we operate now, we have to go upstairs, the steps. So we have other things there. So when stuff come in, like for instance, when this Christmas drive come out, we'll have to find creative ways to store and sort the donations and the stuff that we buy before we send out. Are you guys hearing me?
Yes, we're hearing you. Go ahead.
All right, yeah. So imagine where you need a broad space, 2,000, maybe about 25 to 3,500 square feet of just a flat space that you could store stuff, pull out. When persons donate clothes requires a lot of sorting and grouping, right? So you need that space for that. Because once again, we put out the word here, it's not open.
Just gonna wait and see if he comes back.
Open to volunteers, you can come and volunteer. You're free to donate. $100 come on, and Am I there?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes,
right,
yeah.
Yeah, so you're right on. So it is a huge need. So that once we get that operating space, we can then be able to stockpile things for when the rainy season, hurricane season comes through, we can, if there's a disaster, instead of waiting to raise, we can have some basic supplies that we can distribute. Also, as Abdel mentioned, we get so much ad hoc off the street request. Or sometimes the police station calls us. They have a mother here with some children that don't know what to do. I should put a plug in this too. We have been working on building a safe house. It's in construction, right? For victims of domestic abuse, right? Domestic violence. A proper safe house. That has been a bit paused. We're still trying to get some more funds to complete that. And you will be aware the last 2 months, 3 months, at least 4 persons lose their, females lost their life due to domestic violence. And a part of the problem part of the reason why people cannot leave these difficult situations is the financial constraints, right? So that you have, when we choose to alleviate, sometimes poverty is the main goal, sometimes alleviating the poverty part of it also helps with even a broader problem. And is there a cause that Avi said we are a registered NGO? Okay, Avi could rattle off the banking account information in FCB and in Republic. But once you go to them and say you want to distribute, say you want to transfer money, is Republic Bank or First Citizen Bank, is there not a cause? If you go to our social media pages, right, whether it's on IG, Instagram, and Facebook, you would see our website address is ITNAC, is there not a cause? TT.com, ITNACTT, right, .com, ITNAC. Once you do a search, is there not a cause? You can see all the wonderful work we've been doing. We're inviting we're just asking persons, you want to do something this Christmas, you don't know how you want to donate, partner with us, donate with us. We guarantee that your money, your donation, if you want to volunteer, will be put to great use, right? That Avi said that plug for home base needed because we want to reduce our expenditure as much as possible, right? And then find ways to also raise money. But you can't have a proper shift. We have a thrift shop in St. James. We want to expand that thrift shop, but it's one space that's serving for everything. So
we have
when we do these
thrift shops.
Two there. Two. Both in St. James, one in Bombay and one on the main road, upstairs, La Ferguson. That's in the Western Main Road, right after Standards. But that's our base and we do everything there. So you want to do is to shift our administration and operation and storage of stuff to one part. Use that for the space there for a proper thrift shop for the schooling and whatever else that you can do. And we're really, really hoping that we don't want to have to rent again.
Yeah.
Right? We would prefer that we can have a space that we can, because really and truly, renting comes with its, apart from the financial thing, Jason, is that what we do, we tell people come off the street, and sometimes the way people are and what we think about hampers, if they come off, may not be the best aesthetically pleasing for some environments, right? So we can't just go and rent anyway, right? Because they have other buildings, other offices, and other
businesses
in the location.
Yeah,
that doesn't mesh. So that's why we want to get our building, our own property, our home base.
So you could have whatever, you could do whatever you need to do. You don't need to necessarily consider the neighbors.
No, we don't.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, I think for anybody that either has a business that requires storage space or works in a business that requires storage space, and I worked in one organization, a non-profit organization, that storage was an issue. So I fully understand what it is you're talking about. It might not seem like something obvious to people otherwise, but just having enough space to do the work, to make the work more efficient, means you could get more work done, and you would have more resources at the end of the day to distribute to the actual end user, to the actual end goal, and not in the administrative costs. That's one of the big things, I think, around the world with charity organizations. How much has to be spent with just running the charity as opposed to giving back out, which was the intention of the donations. But I think it's telling that when asked about your cause, Ms. Hector Joseph, she basically still had to get a word in with a couple other programs to give to the poor before she was willing to speak about raising funds for the administration building. And you, Mr. Hector, still had to get a couple more in on the back end about areas in need and programs to give back. And at the end of the day, I think people should be rest assured that giving to ITNAC for their administration building should help improve the services you provide. So I want to thank both of you for joining me for this conversation.
Jason, quickly, we have a separate account. That's in the FCB account, and that goes what we raise for the administration fund. It stays separate to what people give for general donations for projects.
And that's also good to know. And I would advise people, as it was said, you could find them on social media very easily if you just, Google Is There Not a Cause, their Facebook page. I assume, if anything, people could potentially private message you there. I don't necessarily want to put out things like bank numbers out there to the public.
You could put our phone number.
Well, that is my feeling. I don't have it. Maybe I will. Maybe I'll try and figure out a way that I could put it up and make it an ongoing thing. That's my fault. I apologize. I didn't think that through. But I am appreciative of the conversation, and maybe hopefully we could have you all again. You all could give us an update on the administration building and potentially on what some of the programs you have after Christmas coming up to try to help. The needs don't end with the Christmas season. They are ongoing.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you, Jason. Listeners, for a backpack project where we'll be giving out to the unhoused and the promenade and different places a knapsack with towels, toiletries, and stuff. So we'll be back once you let us come back.
Of course. And folks, you can keep up to date with what all of, because they have a lot of ongoing programs at the same time. You can keep up to date with it on their social media pages. But hopefully we will speak again. Folks, we do have to take a break. When we come back, we'll open up the phone lines to close the week. Stay tuned. This is Talk About the WSN. We'll be right back after this.
Transform your home with PCU Plus. From stylish furniture to the latest appliances, we have everything you need to create your perfect space. At PCU Plus, we offer fair prices and affordable financing options that are cheaper than hire purchase agreements. With convenient locations in San Fernando, Tobago, Arima, and our lifestyle showroom in Barataria, you're never far from the best deals. Visit PCU Plus today and discover why we're the top choice for quality furniture and appliances. PCU Plus. Quality you trust, prices you'll love. Visit one of our locations or find us online to start transforming your home today.
Simon's Musical Supplies Limited. We are the specialist in new and used musical instruments, carrying top brands like Yamaha, Pearl River pianos, vinyl and Sabian cymbals, Remo and Evans drum heads and Fender guitars, just to name a few. Also a wide assortment of music books, pan and accessories. At Simon's, we service what we sell. Trust the leader. Call us now at 625-6412 or visit us at 20 Board Street, Port of Spain.
Here's your chance to win a bicycle, a ride-on, or a hoverboard. Shop at dbesttoys.com and spend $300 or more to win big.
We've got Bobby,
Hot Wheels, Gel Blasters, Ride-ons,
Leapfrog,
Nerf, bicycles and tricycles.
Greco, and Wonder Baby.
Visit us in store at Forces flagship McLean, Movietown, Port of Spain,
Eastgate Mall and M6 Plaza Endeavor.
Merry Christmas, everyone!
Do you need treatment for obesity or any related abdominal procedures? The community hospital now offers minimally invasive laparoscopic surgery done by an American-trained, board-certified surgeon with over 20 years' experience. Give us a call at 235-5479 for more information.
The Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist,
where good private health care is affordable.
And we're back here and talk about the WSND Content Capital. We will open up the phone lines. We also should have ITNAC's number on the screen, so you could call in one time if you feel inspired to do so. You could also check out their social media. The 2 bank account numbers are on their Facebook page. I don't know how I missed it in my multiple passes through their social media page, as well as other contact information. But with that said, the number should be on your screen, both ours and ITNAC's. We have our first caller from Digger Martin. Good morning, caller, you're on air.
Good morning, Sean. Today is Black Friday, the 13th. And it's sad to say I'm seeing on social media, DJS News, that we have reached the 600 homicide number.
Oh. Who would have thought?
And apparently, within the last 15 minutes, it has gone past that with a murder somewhere in Lady Young Road. So that is the grave situation confronting Trinidad. I know we have had the swan song of Fitzgerald Hines, but I'm hoping that the leadership of the police do likewise. We cannot afford to have these sort of things. We are all sitting ducks. The other issue is that I looked at the Prime Minister utterances and he was dingling. Why is he berating the media asking some simple question? And it reminds me of a discussion I've had with Karen. The ship rider agreement so far is something similar to that, but not as stringent as the ship rider agreement. And the Americans, you can't do it because apparently they have done it with several other countries. And why isn't him answering, putting in questions that the fourth estate of this country is doing? And the third and final issue, he has defended the finance minister on a poor procurement process with the airport in Tobago. That has happened because they mashed up, disseminated the procurement legislation. The thing I was hoping that we have not touched and we are deflecting on is what has happened to the Auditor General and the $2.53 billion. How are we resolving that issue? That is a critical issue for all the external credit rating facilities that tell us where we're going. We need to know what is happening. That is plenty money. Apparently alleged misappropriation. Why we're doing that? I find it's saddening, and I'm coming back to the Prime Minister going after the Newsday because they were pro the Prime Minister. They have always been soft on him. And I wanted to ask a question in a different way. Was that story intended to come out like that? To deflect on all the issues confronting Trinidad and Tobago, the homicide rate, the 2.5? Was that a planned outcome? Because apparently he came with the intention to confront the media personnel. So it's a plan, and he was dingling, to use a colloquial term. I'm going to have a nice morning.
I mean, if it was the case where it was planned to be a puff piece, oh, look at what we're doing something great. And one could argue, listen, to some extent, all of those things, all, everywhere around the world, look at us, we're signing a thing, look at what we do. They are essentially look at me moments. The problem, of course, is they have to do it. They have to do it because to some extent, we need to be informed about things like this. And when it's positive, good for them. I'm not going to fault them for it, right? I think it's a good thing that they engaged with America, that they came to agreements. It shows that, hey, we're not blanking America, even though our desires might not necessarily be in line with their desires. Now, the opposition leader brought up a very interesting question. We're signing agreements with them when essentially a new administration is coming in January next year, I believe. And should we have done so? I think to some extent a lot of these agreements are not those type of diplomatic things that are very dependent on our administration. A lot of these agreements are kind of par for the course with regards to certain situations. They just make certain allowances and to bring the two nations together regardless of who's in office. This is not like a Treaty of Port of Spain of if Venezuela invades and it outlines how many troops and da-da-da-da. All it does is it allows U.S. troops to be deployed for whatever reason if invited. And it seems as though, again, the Prime Minister only saw the headline and didn't actually bother with the contents of the article to fully give an informed statement. That's my speculation. I'm not even necessarily saying that I would guarantee that to be true. I think that might be true, but I'll leave that there. We have Tunapun on the line. Good morning, caller, you're on the air. Caller, good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Morning.
Yeah, good morning. Calling from Tunapuna. Yeah, in respect of this COVID excuse that people keep using, we experiencing this bad COVID experience. Let me get this fact straight. In the year 2015, when this present administration take office, there were 516,926 people paying NIS. In 2019, just before COVID, that 516,926 dropped to 420,000. So we have to get our facts straight. 21% of that paying NIS pensioners were no longer able to pay because they had lost their job. 21%. That worked out to be over 120,000 people lose their job from 2015 to 2019 before COVID when this administration come on. So let us get our figures straight. It's not no COVID. We had lost it before COVID. Check with NIS and see this report. We cannot all the time use COVID as an excuse. This thing started before COVID, 2019. We lose 120,000 people lose their job from 2015 to 2019. Check NIS for that information. So we have to stop this nonsense of blaming COVID. I don't know when they're going to stop blaming COVID. COVID is not the problem. Thank you very much.
Caller, I understand where you're coming from, but I think, and I was wondering if people would misunderstand, COVID is not the be-all and end-all, but to say that it didn't contribute, I think that wouldn't necessarily be an accurate thing to say. It contributed. And I am one of the people who have said, and I think I may have said it as recently as yesterday or the day before, that we have had certain issues post-COVID with regards to the energy and our economy and so forth and so forth. And then also one of the things that I went to say, yes, we had issues with COVID because when I had the initial interviews, and I believe it was with more than one organization, I'm not entirely sure if I got ITNAC on the show, then it was a couple of years ago, or if I knew I was in talks with them, right? And maybe I had them on the show and maybe it didn't work out, but I had at least a couple of charity organizations talking about the effects of COVID. So that was just the lead-in to then come to where we are now, which is not directly due to COVID. Things were bad before COVID. I remember hearing the Minister of Finance's press conference talking about the poor energy prices. Then Keaton brought up more than once that there was even a day when the prices were in negative, right? I remember a press conference over the fact that the price of oil dropped to $19 a barrel. This is sometime in 2019, right? Or early 2020, just before COVID. Just before COVID hit the world, the Minister of Finance had a press conference where he was getting it left, right, and center and trying to defend a position that, I mean, to some extent, it's not very defensible, given the fact that they went through that before COVID, and now in 2024, they are still kind of riding the energy train and not wanting to get off of that dragon, rhetorically and literally. But to say that COVID did not contribute, and I think that's what also the speakers from ITNAC were getting at. COVID did contribute. certain households never recovered from COVID alone. Yes, things were bad before COVID. So there were families that didn't recover from that. Then COVID happened. More families went into a decline financially and got into trouble. And then the cost of living crisis that happened within the last couple of years further made things worse for those already on the breadline and for people, causing people to now enter the breadline. So I understand, because I do think there will be some people who will potentially try to blame everything on COVID. That's not what we're trying to do. But we still have to acknowledge what happened. It was a thing, and it wasn't a small thing. And I get your frustration, because it was not about an excuse. One of the things that my two guests spoke about was the fact that from their observation, politicians on both sides of the aisle, for those who don't like it, when I put two and two together, when I try to speak about both parties in the same breath, they said it, not me. I just happen to agree with it. Both sides of the aisle do not understand the cost of living situation now, right? They weren't saying it's COVID's fault. They're saying that there are too many politicians. They didn't say all. They didn't say all. But I do believe they have real, potentially anecdotal, but real specific experience for them to make that statement. That the leadership of the country, because the opposition is technically part of the legislature, which is one of the main bodies, the House, and to a lesser extent the Senate, are the main bodies of power in this country. Let's get it real now, particularly the House. They have MPs too. Yes, it's a minority, but it's not a small minority. It's a large minority. The government only has simple majorities. The leadership seems to be oblivious to what's going on to a lot of people out there. Now the question is it willful or is it unintentional? I don't know. Because to some extent, let them eat cake is something that is not necessarily intentionally in bad faith said. It is said out of ignorance because the speaker may not know any better. May make jokes about coal pots and riding bicycles because they don't know any better. Because they don't live that life. And which one thing I'll say is I'm surprised. Maybe really rich people don't have friends and family who are not rich. I wouldn't know, right? My family is traditionally very much middle class. I say traditionally because I don't know really if we would qualify. Maybe we are lower middle class or lower class now. I have no idea, right? I know that businesses are hard, people are retiring, and family and most of my generation went away. So they're not dealing with our economy, they're dealing with their own issues one way or the other in other parts of the world. So I just know that for me, life isn't automatically easy. And for friends of mine that I have, life is just as hard, if not worse. So there's a part of me that wonders, are you so insulated? Is your friend circle, your social circle even, your informal circle outside of your professional life so limited that you are insulated from the realities of what's going on? Or is it that you just don't want to hear it? I don't know the answer to that question. I'm informed by what I experience and what I am told by people in my circle, and I actively engage with people. I go to businesses and I ask them. It's just one of the routine things that I like to do. How's things going? Things slow today? I want to get a feel for, how hard it is for them. There are places where I like to buy food from that I try to hit regularly just to give that support, even if I'm kind of thinking, I don't really want to spend $60, $70 today. I don't have to. But I don't come here often and I want to give them a sale. Now it's a minor thing. But part of it is I engage in a very little way. I am aware in a very little way, but I am afraid that there are a lot of people who are not aware. And we end up where we end up here. So, I hope, no pun intended, that after listening to the interview, some of you are inspired. It is very heartening to hear about all the work that ICNTT is doing. And when an organization could literally just list off program after program, fundraiser after fundraiser, drive after drive to get stuff to the needy, to the point where I'm impressed. I don't even know how they could fit that all in a working day. But hey, I guess for them it's a 24-hour calling. It makes me think, look, those are the equivalent to the workers in the public sector who understand that if we stop, this whole thing comes down. It's the same kind of mindset of putting others first that I wish I would be able to do more of. But I mean, if it was easy, everybody would be doing it, right? They're made of maybe different stuff, even cut from different cloth than myself and many others who, you know, we all do our little parts, but our little parts, I'm afraid might not be good enough moving forward. Especially if the old saying goes through, well, the night is always darkest before the dawn. How much more will we have to suffer before things really start to meaningfully improve? Now, I was trying to find the reports on social media about the murder rates, but I'm not that well connected into social media. I'm not that much into social media as one might think. So I wasn't able to verify the caller's claims, but I guess that's a hell of a thing. If we're above 600 and we're approaching the halfway point for the month, we've not reached there yet. Well, that just, you know, to some extent, that just spins the murder rate narrative into something worse. And while I understand that it's pertinent to some people, I think it doesn't really change that much for me, because even if we were at 599 on December the 31st, I'm not going to say, yes, we didn't hit 600. Even if it was 580, even if it was 550, I would still lament the fact that we have issues. Issues with detection, issues with prosecution, issues with the prison service, issues with the judiciary. Across the board, there are issues. They vary, and their intensity and scope are greater than most of us probably realize. And that's just one aspect of society. It's bad, and we need to do something about it. And that's one of the unfortunate things. As much as an organization as ICNTT does, they literally can't do everything. And it's unfortunate. I am very grateful for ICNTT and other church ministries, Living Waters community, for all they do for those in need with regards to cost of living and poverty and just trying to get food on the table, trying to get a Christmas hand in people's households for Christmas. Maybe a ham, maybe a turkey, maybe some pastels, maybe canned Spam, right? It is what it is, but if people can at least have something to enjoy for Christmas so that things don't seem as bleak, it gives them motivation to keep moving forward. That is so important. But that is but one aspect of our society in need. There are other things, other problems that need fixing. And I think they agreed with me when I said it comes back down to the population and the message we're sending to the politicians. Now, I don't want to put words in their mouth, so I'll leave it there. I won't go into all of my usual spiel. But you know what I mean when I say that. And I think at some point we need to understand that we can't keep hoping that individuals like those in ICNTT and those in other NGOs and the few public servants that actually are devoted to their job, the teachers who are actually devoted to the calling of teaching, the police officers and fire officers that are devoted to their calling to protect and serve, we have to stop taking them for granted, because at some point there's not going to be enough of them to deal with the problems that we have, to put a band-aid on the situation, to kind of cover it up and to hide the harsh realities from the rest of us. We've already hit certain milestones. Mrs. Secretary Joseph pointed out she didn't think some of the things that she saw in Haiti would happen here. And yet now she's seeing working poor all too often. You're working, but it's not actually helping you, or at least not as much as it should. What does that mean? What does that mean for society when We're slowly moving towards that point. It's going to take its time if we stay on this course, but I guarantee you that if we get there, everybody will want to say, how did things get so bad all of a sudden? It didn't. We just turned a blind eye at it, didn't do anything about it. We assumed that it would never get as bad as it is, and then it did. History is wrought with examples of this happening to various societies. Why should we just go with the old adage, God is a Trini, and expect everything to work out while complaining about everything? It doesn't make any sense. A paradox of our society. Another one. If you don't like it, maybe we should do something about it. I'm not just saying you alone, I say collectively we. And for all of you out there, make today and this weekend a good day, as my co-host would always say. Remember your allegiance to the Republic and to each other, above all other organizations or affiliations. At the end of the day, really and truly, that's the only way we're going to pull ourselves out of whatever hole we've dug for ourselves. But regardless, perhaps if we always stick to this simple premise, it's nice to be nice, then everything else would technically sort itself out after that. We will see you next week. Stay safe. Bye-bye.
WESN.
Be a part of a very special holiday event. Walt Disney presents Mickey's Once Upon a Christmas. Join Mickey Mouse, Donald Duck, Goofy, and all your favorite Disney characters in the film that brings home the true meaning of the holidays.
Share the joy of Christmas.
Come along as Mickey and Minnie discover the magic of sharing.
You're all the music I'll ever need.
Donald Duck and his nephews learn the joy of Christmas comes only once a year.
The best day of the year!
And Goofy shows Max
Of course there's a Sammy.
that with faith and a little trust, dreams do come true.
Merry Christmas, Dad.
All your favorite Disney characters in one big holiday celebration. Mickey's Once Upon a Christmas.
Here's your chance to win a bicycle, a ride-on, or a hoverboard. Shop at dbesttoys.com and spend $300 or more to win big.
We've got Bobby,
Hot Wheels, Gel Blasters, Ride-Ons,
Leapfrog,
Nerf, Bicycles and Tricycles,
Greco and Wonder Baby.
Visit us in store at Forces flagship McLean, Movie Town for the Spain,
Eastgate Mall and M6 Plaza Endeavour.
Merry Christmas, everyone!
Maybe he landed here totally by coincidence. But if by chance he's admiring your fresh coat of Benjamin Moore soft sky blue, well, that's a pretty high compliment. Coming from an expert.